team, welcome to the session for the getting started with Next.js. So in this session, before starting the session, let's not forget the knowledge etiquette. So join the session 5 minutes prior to the session start time. We start on time and conclude on time. Make sure to submit a constructive feedback for all session as it is very helpful for the presenter. Keep your mobile devices in the silent mode. Feel free to move out of the session in case you need to attend any urgent call. Avoid unwanted chit chat during the session. So the agenda for this session will be we will be discussing exactly what is Next.js, why we should learn Next.js, as there are many frameworks in the market like React.js is already there, which is more popular and powerful also. So why there is a need to learn Next.js? Also, we will be creating our first Next.js project in this session, and we'll look on the project structure, the directory structure, and the files and folders that Next.js provides us, and we will see just a simple demo, including that project structure. So let's not wait time and start the session now. So the very first question is what is Next.js? According to the documentation, the Next.js is a React framework for production. Now here I have highlighted the term React framework for production. So what does it actually mean? All of the framework that we are using are at the end deployed to the production. So what does it mean that React framework for production? So let's first analyze this term to understand it better. So if you try to build an application just only with React, it is not quite possible to develop the full feature-rich application that is ready for production. Now, why is it so? Since React is a JavaScript library and it is only focused on the view layer of an application, but an application is far more bigger than a view layer. You have to manage routing, you have to manage styling, you have to do the authentication and etc. Also, you have to modify the build and all. So in the React, it is just focused on the view layer. But you as a developer, if you are trying to develop a React application that is production ready, you as a developer have to make choices of the features like styling, routing, authentication, etc. But in Next.js, Next.js is actually a framework that is built on top of React, a package that uses React for building the UI interfaces, but it also comes preloaded with a lot of features that is out of the box. Like Next.js provides you a styling feature, routing, bundle optimization, and all. So you need not to worry about anything when you are developing a Next.js application. Next.js has all the required things that is ready to deploy a application on production. Features like routing, authentication, and bundle optimization are the main key features that we are using in a Next.js. So Next.js tells just tells you that you just focus on coding, and the rest of the things can be handled by Next.js itself. So why Next.js? Why we should learn Next.js? So the very first term is file based routing. So as we discussed, when you are using React, you have to figure out which router package you will install. Whenever you create a new route, you have to write the code for that. You have to include that route. But in the Next.js provides you file based routing. Now what does file based routing means actually? So whenever you create a file with a name, that particular name becomes the route for that application. So we will be discussing file based routing in my upcoming session, which is on 14th April. So you can join the routing part in that. So next, let's move on to the next one, that is pre-rendering. So what is pre-rendering? Next.js generates the HTML of each page in advance instead of having it all done by client-side JavaScript. So this particular pre-rendering feature makes a page SEO, application SEO and performance far better. API routes. In Next.js, you can also create APIs. So you can consider it as a full stack framework where you create a React or a Next.js application, that is where you will be having components of React. And then you can also create the API that your React application or Next.js application will be calling. So you can consider the Next.js framework as a full stack framework. Now, the next one, support for CSS modules. Next.js supports CSS modules that saves your time for choosing a CSS library. Whenever we develop application, we spend a few of our time in selecting whether we should use Bootstrap or Tailwind. So Next.js supports CSS modules that will save your time of choosing a library, but it doesn't restrict you from choosing any library. If you want, if you prefer Bootstrap or Tailwind, you can go through, you can go with that. There is no issue, there is no restriction. But Next.js provides you the CSS module support. Authentication. Next.js also have authentication designed for different use cases, and authentication in itself is a bigger topic that we will be discussing in the upcoming sessions for the Next.js. Also, the most important feature is dev and prod build system. So Next.js provides a dev build system and a well optimized production build system that help you focus more on code and less on the configuration. It means you do not have to worry about the configurations of deploying it in dev or in a production. You just have to focus on what you are developing, and for the configuration part, Next.js handle it on its own. So these are the key features for why you should use Next.js. Now we have learned what is Next.js and why Next.js. So do you guys have any of the questions before moving to the next topic? Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes. Do you guys have any confusion, any question that why we are moving to Next.js, why not React?
Is that we just providing the plugins for Tailwind or Bootstrap?
Sorry, but I'm not getting your voice. It is a lot of noise that is coming from the side.
I think he's asking about can we include Tailwind or other CSS framework with
Yeah,
Next.js, right? If
you,
I got
you can use any of the CSS library. Even you can use CSS in JS solutions like a styled component also. Next.js never restricts you doing that. It is in an addition out of the box feature that it supports CSS modules. So if you don't want to waste your time in choosing any of the libraries, you can just move ahead with that only, and it will be sufficient for the styling. I hope that answers your question.
Can we use React modules like which we use in React in Next.js?
Yeah, you can use. Although you will be creating React components only when you are developing a Next.js application. Since Next.js is a framework, so it has its own opinionated and conventions for writing few of the things. But at the end, it will be a React component only that you will be developing. So let's talk about the prerequisites then. So before learning Next.js, your HTML, CSS, and JavaScript fundamentals must be clear, and you must have a good understanding of React.js fundamentals, like arrow functions, like JSX, like props, and all. If you are good with that, then you can go ahead with the learning of Next.js.
Yeah, so as guys, as this framework is based, you might have noticed like people talk about React versus Angular. Angular is a framework, React is a library. Now Next.js is a kind of framework, and framework means it has everything from, let's say, creating HTML to optimizing these HTML and CSS, then deploying it to some production environment. So build system as well, development, build, testing, everything is integrated, right? You just need to follow certain instructions, how to write, let's say, a Next.js component, how to build, though there are inbuilt commands, how to build the system, right? But still, you should understand how React.js is working. On top of those concepts, what React was providing you, now you have some power from Next.js module system, right? So that is pre-built, though you can still optimize, okay? And slightly some learning curve on top of React.js, but there's a huge benefit using Next.js, right? Core is still React. You should understand React first, right? Should learn something about React, like component creation and everything, module integration, whatever, let's say, optimization technique you use, creating component, and then how to route these, what are the file structure which Next.js recommend, right? So that you need not to write code for routing, as Saurabh mentioned. And also, like this SEO optimization thing is pre-built there. The pre-rendering is there, okay? So you need not to bother about, though, I mean, if you are to suppress that, there are certain other ways, okay? You need not to, if let's say your requirement is, I'm not worried about SEO, I don't want that pre-rendering, so that I can avoid first rendering page load time, right? In certain scenario, right? So that there are certain techniques how you can enable it or disable it. But let's start first with Next.js, try to learn it, how to get start with this Next.js framework. And then those optimization technique we can learn later, okay? There might be some other session we can plan, okay, based on your feedback, right? And then, I mean, learning curve is slightly there, but it's quite beneficial, right, if you choose Next.js comparing to other framework. Okay, go ahead, Saurabh.
Thanks, Neeraj. So we will be creating now our first Next.js project. So before creating a Next.js project, your system must have Node.js installed and the Node package manager that comes with the Node.js itself. So these are the prerequisites for a system to run a Next.js project. To create a Next.js project, there are actually two ways. The first one is manually, and the second one is a tool that is called React Next App tool. So we can create a Next app using both the ways. So let's discuss the manual creation. You have to create a directory for your project and just move into that directory. Then initialize your package.jsn file using the npm init -y flag. Then install. Actually, Next.js requires three of the scripts to get it as a Next.js project. So those scripts are React, React DOM, and Next. We will be discussing these scripts in the package.json file. We will be discussing the project structure. So you can install these three scripts using the command npm install and the script's name, package name. Then you will need to update your package.json file, start the initialization of Next.js application, and just paste these three scripts into your package.json file, where dev will be for the dev environment, build will be for building the application, and start for starting the production, starting it in production server. Now the second process is you just need to simply run a command npm create next app and the app name or the project name, or npx create next app and the project name. What is the difference between npm and npx is when you write npm create next app, it will install the create next app tool in your system for lifelong. But if you don't want to overburden your system with that tool, you just need to run the command npx, as it will go into the npm repository and just install this create next app tool for the first time when you are creating the application. So let's just create the Next.js project.
So basically, we have to run the npx command for the each project.
Yeah. Whenever you are creating a project, you will have to run this command npx create next app, and it will install the create next app tool in your system for that time only, and after that you will not find this tool in your system anywhere. So this is a way where you can just skip the overburdening for your system, installing a lot of tools. And if you want to keep the tool for a longer time, just use the npm command. So here I am creating a folder named as demo. I will just open it in terminal and write the command npx create next app, and my app name will be example app, and just hit the enter. So it is asking, do you need to install the following package create next app? It will install for the first time only. Why? Would you like to use the TypeScript? Yes, I would like to use. ESLint, sure. Do you want any src slash directory? No, I don't want it. And the project is now creating. You can see the dependencies here. It's React, React DOM, and Next that is being installed as a package. So it will take few time, I guess. Yeah, it's created. So let's just move into this folder and open it any of the text editor of your choice. I would prefer VS Code as I am already using it. So here is your next app. First next app is being created. Now let's just run it. So for running a next app, in the dev environment, you will have to run the command npm run dev, and it will start the server on localhost 3000. So let's just hit localhost 3000, and you can see your first Next project is up and running on localhost 3000, where you are having the Next.js latest version name and few of the links to the documentation. Also, you are having an instructional text: get started by editing page slash index.tsx. So it is instructing you that if you want to start, you can go to the pages and then index.tsx to start your work. So this way we can create our Next.js project. Now I will be just writing a program, very compulsory and a common program when you are learning something. So we will do that with the project structure itself. So let's just move to the project structure first. So project structure. Now let's discuss one by one. We will be discussing first the files, and then we will be moving into the folders. So let's start with the most important folder, that is package.json. So your package.json contains the name of your app, that is example app, its version, and whether it is private or not, few of the scripts that needs for an Next.js app, and then the dependencies and sub dependencies. Here we don't have any kind of dev dependencies. So the dependencies you can see here is React and React DOM. These two dependencies are required for building the UI, since Next.js itself is a framework that is built on React. So these two are required for building the UI, and then the Next.js here, as it is the framework that we are using. Currently the version is 13.2.4, and the TypeScript, as we have choose to develop it into the TypeScript. Now we are having two more things, that is the ESLint. So ESLint basically it does linting your code. Now linting your code in simple terms means it will highlight the potential warnings and errors while you are writing the code. So these two dependencies are required for linting. Now let's come to the scripts. So we have a total of 4 scripts here, which are there for different purposes. So the first one, dev script. So dev script actually runs a Next.js application in a development mode with hot reloading and etc. So this particular script is used to run a Next app in the development mode. Now the second script is build script. So build script, which compiles your application, Next.js application, and prepares it for production deployment. Whenever you want to do a production deployment, this is the script that will run, and it will prepare the app for the production deployment. The start script, it will just start your application, just compiled application, it will start your compiled application in the production environment. Now just note one thing, the build script will always run prior to the start script, because it is the build script that compiles your application, and the start script will just start it into the production server when it is compiled. And the next one is the linting, that will lint all your files, whatever files you have in your application, and just throw you the warnings or errors whatever there will be a linting error or warning. So these are the 4 scripts that a Next.js app runs. Now moving to the next file, that is package log.json. So package log or yarn log.json, you can also see yarn here, as it depends on whatever you choose as a package manager. Here I am choosing npm as a package manager, and you can also choose yarn as a package manager. So if you are using yarn, so here it will be yarn log, and if I am using here is as npm, so it is package log.json. So these files, uh, it simply ensures consistent installation of your dependencies. Whatever dependencies you have mentioned in the package.json, it ensures that these dependencies get consistently installed into your project. Now the next one is git ignore file. You might all are aware with this file. This is just a version control with git, that whatever file you want to ignore when you are pushing the code. So the git ignore file is for that purpose. And then the readme.md file, it contains the information related to your project, like you can say for deploying, for building, or for starting your application. So these two files we covered. Now the next one is the next config.js. So it is a Next.js configuration file where you can see there is a React strict mode to true. So React strict mode pulls up a lot of features, like I can say it helps you in development, etc. and etc. So just leave it as true here only. Do not alter it to false. And the next one file is the last is eslentric.json, and it is just a configuration file for your ESLint, nothing else. Now since we have covered all the files here, so let's just tsconfig.json is for the config, it is a configuration file for the TypeScript, and Next.js environment file, it is for the environment, different environments. So we have covered all the files here. Now let's just move to the Next.js as a folder, .next folder. So what does .next folder do? So it basically generates when you run the command npm run dev. I might wonder if you have seen when I have not run the command npm run dev, there were no .next folder here. It was just started with the node modules folder. So when I ran the command npm run dev, the .next folder got created, and it is this folder which is serving our app. So the .next folder will be serving our next app, and it is by default mentioned into the .gitignore file. So you need not to worry that when you are pushing the code, it will go into the repository. The next one is node modules, and it is the folder in which all the dependencies and sub dependencies are installed. It is actually created when you run the command npm install or yarn install, depending upon the package manager, or first time when you create the when you run the command npm run dev, it also internally run the command npm install to get the node modules. Okay, now let's just skip the pages folder for now, and let's move to the public folder. So the public folder contains all the public resources that is required for application, like the images, the fab icon, and all. Here you can see in the React we have a index.html as a single HTML page in the public folder, but in the Next.js application it is not there, because whenever you create a route and what kind of application you are creating, based on that it creates the index.html file, as you have learned into the pre-rendering part that it generates the HTML before. So that's why there is no single HTML file here. Now coming back to the styles folder, so styles folder have two files. The first one is global CSS. Whatever CSS you will be writing here will be applied whole throughout the app. It is a global file. So if here I try to write like, let me try like I'm writing here as h2, and I am giving it a color as red. So whenever you will be using h2 in your application anywhere, the color will be red only. You can see the color becomes red for the h2. So it is the global styling file where you need to add a global style if you have any. And the second one is the module level file, the support for CSS module. So here you can write the component level specific styles. Like you can see in the pages folder, we have an index.js file where we have the home component. So it is the style that is applying here. So if you want to style your component, you can use the syntax like whatever be the name of your component, then .module.css, and it will be applied to that particular or wherever you import this particular module file. So the CSS will be applied to there only. So you can use it for component level styling. Now the most important folder in a Next.js application is pages folder. Now why it is most important? When we are going through that why we should learn Next.js, we have read a term file based routing. So it is the pages folder where you will create your pages for a web application, or alternatively you can say the routes for your web application or any kind of application. So here you can see index.tsx, it is by default the home route. Like you can see this particular file is served here at localhost 3000, or you can say localhost 3000 slash also. So it will be that only. So by default it is the home route. Whatever file you will be creating here, like if I am creating here as about.tsx, it will be a route now. You can see the about listed here name. So I just created a route. So if your application is having more pages, then you can simply create and that pages needs to be displayed on a separate route. Then you need to create the pages, that particular file in the pages folder, and that will be automatically get converted into the route. We are having a session on 14th April on routing where we will be discussing the routing in depth, like how we can achieve the static routing, the dynamic routing, and all. So you guys can join that session. And also now after that we have covered all the here all the pages sorry, all the folders and files. Now there is nothing left to be known about this project structure. Can you guys tell me if I left something here that needs to be discussed?
API.
Yeah, sure. So this is the
I
API
have a question
folder.
here.
Sure.
What is the significance of .tsx extension over here? Like in the React, we used to do .js or HTML.
There is no such significance. You can use .ts as well, but we generally use .tsx because this particular component is containing functions as well as the JSX itself. So that's why we are using .tsx here. You can use .ts as well and it will perform as it is. You can use .js as well, but since a component contains functions as well as JSX, so we generally prefer to use .jsx extension with the component. And in the file where we
Thi-
are only having the functions, we can use .ts or .js.
yeah, this is actually inspired from TypeScript, right? As we have selected this implementation with TypeScript rather choosing JavaScript, right? That's why this is called TSX. So
Yeah,
most of
if
your
I would
code
have
would be
used JavaScript, then it would be JSX.
JSX. Okay.
Okay, so we have left with the API folder. So consider you are having an application where your application needs to call some API, and I don't think so there would be any application that is not calling any of the APIs unless and until it is a single page application with just a few raw data in it. So if you want to create an API, you can just move into the API folder. Like here, it is having just a configuration like page. So here you can create your API that your React application will be calling. So this is the place where you will be creating your APIs. Now, since Next.js is a framework, that's why it's have its own convention and opinionated way to do something. Like for creating a route, you will always have to create a file in the pages folder, and other than else, if you are creating anywhere else, it will be not be going to be a route anymore. That's why React is a library where you are free to do anything, and Next.js is a framework that gives you all the things, but also have certain conventions of doing the things. However, you cannot, it is not necessary to put styles here. It is just that React is helping you to segregate the things. Like you have your components somewhere else, have your styling at one place, have your routes at one place, but you can have a components where you need to add some of the styling to that particular component. You can just move the styling file or just create the styling file in that particular folder only. There is no such restrictions for styles, but there is a restriction for routes that you will have to create on the pages folder itself. And for the API also, you will have to create the API in this particular folder only. So now I guess I have covered all the files and folders. So now let's create the whatever I told you, like the most compulsory and the most important program that is necessary for learning any of the languages, I guess. And it is the first program that anyone would run. So let's just remove this head from here. Just leave it as blank. Type here h1 and write hello world. Just move to back to the route, home route. You can see hello world. I guess this is the only compulsory program that we all learn whenever we try to learn a new framework or a language. Am I right, guys?
Definitely. Right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
because it boosts our confidence, like we finally did something in a language. So this is the most compulsory program. Sorry for the bad joke. Now here you can see that the hello world is printed. Now let's understand the last but not the least, the control flow, that how control is flowing between a next app. So from package.json, when you here you can see the dev script. When I ran the command npm run dev, the execution is transferred to this particular file. Here now the app dot underscore app dot tsx file is something where you define the layout of your application. Like if you want to have few of the wrapper components, if you want to have provider like you were having in the react, so that things you will be defining here. So when you run the from the terminal npm run dev, the execution is transferred to underscore app dot tsx file, which contains this app component. Okay, and the app component automatically receives this component and page props, which are then returned, as a part of the JSX. Now when we navigated here to the localhost 3000 in the browser, the component will refer. Now the component will refer to the this file. Okay, this particular component is passed as a prop here, and that is being returned, and whatever page props you pass. So this is how when we run a npm run dev command, you are able to see the hello world here. So this is the overall flow how a Next.js app executes. So I guess I was just left earlier this particular file. So this particular file is for defining the layout of your component. Like for example, just take if you are having like a toast container, like a toast message that you have successfully signed in, you have successfully deleted something, and you want to display it all over your application on each and every page. Then instead of having that particular toast container in each of the component, you can just add that particular component here itself, and whenever a component is rendered and you call that toast message, the toast message will be displayed all over the apps. So this particular file is used for defining the layout of your component. Now so that's it from my side, guys. If you do have any questions, you can ask, and also if you have questions later on, you can just ping me over the chat and I will be happy to answer your question.
Uh, we use npm run dev, and I think we can use yarn also. So what is the difference between them, yarn and npm?
See, yarn and npm, they both are a package manager. It is up to you that you prefer what, which, like you are having two cars, you are also having bmw, you are also having audi. So it is up to you, you are preferring which. Likewise same, npm is also a node package manager, and yarn is also a node package manager. So if you are using any of them, there is no problem, you can use any of them, there is no difference. They both are a package manager for node.
Guys, just to add on top of this one, earlier when Node.js was invented, right, there was no concept of locking the lock file, right? And Facebook was developing this React, so they introduced this package manager Yarn, which was kind of leveraging that versioning of that particular package to log somewhere, to create a separate file, so that while deploying your system or maybe maintaining the version of the system, that package log file should be there. What particular version you have utilized for that build, right? Sometime, I mean, people faced these conflicts, like now the package is, let's say, you develop something with package X, and now there is X.1, and that is not supported. When you run the npm install, you'll always get the latest version, right? Most nearest, right? But sometime, I mean, there are certain situation when the build fail, and you have to figure out which particular version is compatible now with your build, right? So though there are certain, I mean, there are certain issues that people face at that moment. So Yarn was developed by kind of Facebook community. There is a community particularly, right? All these are open source, right? So there are certain community which were supporting Yarn, which are supporting NPM. So these are, I mean, two different way of managing packages, right? So it's up to you now. Now they're both are something like, I mean, the same strategy they are using, maintaining log, versioning, blah blah thing. Okay, so that's up to you. There's no difference as such, right? Internally, maybe developing Yarn and NPM, but the outcome is same. Okay.
Okay,
Okay,
thank
guys,
you.
thanks for joining. And if you have any question, do reach out to Front End Studio. Right, we'll try to solve your queries. And also, you can share your feedback. You can suggest us some more topic related to front end or front end framework, right? And then we may plan some better session, right, with some better content, right? And yeah, that's it, I think, for now.
And also you guys
Any
can
other
go through
feedback?
that routing in Next.js blog that I have written on the Noldas blog before the upcoming session on 14th April, so that you guys would have a initial idea for the routing.
Yeah, and we do publish our tag hub. Tag hub means the code, the chunk of code, right? I mean, you can start with Next.js with just downloading one template that will have certain code blocks, right? You can utilize those as well. Follow the blogs, right? Then you can maybe rewind these recordings, right? Whatever we are discussing here, right? And this is how you can speed up on learning, right? So that's the basic motive, right? Okay, cool. Thanks
Okay,
again.
guys.
Thanks for joining.
Thank
See
you,
you
guys.
soon.
Thank you for attending the
Thanks,
session.
Bye
Neeraj.
bye for
Thanks,
now.
Saurav.
Thank you.
Thanks for the wonderful session. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, bye, guys.